Hello everyone, my name is David Varsimashvili. Are compliance regulations becoming so complex that they are killing the businesses? This compliance is no longer a side function. It's a core operational requirement. AML assessment is no longer just a regulatory requirement. It's a fundamental necessity to safeguard organizations from financial, legal, and reputational risks. Do sanctions work or not? The answer is both yes and no.
Hello everyone and welcome you to this webinar episode brought to you by the Soltesz Institute. My name is Viktoria, I'm the founder of the Institute, and here we are fighting for an ethical and transparent payment and banking industry where everybody is well educated and well informed to make their own decisions about the different options on the market, different fintech products and services. So that's why we are bringing you a lot of content through these webinars, inviting industry experts to talk about all of those aspects which payment, banking, and fintech is affecting, and to raise awareness that how important it is to talk about payments and banking, planning, understand this ever-changing industry, and be aware of how to take advantage of all of these new regulatory and technologically innovations. So thank you very much, Anastasia, to join us today. I'm very happy that we have this conversation because you bringing us the knowledge of a very unique aspect of the payment and banking industry, which is basically talent sourcing and understanding how these people are fitting the company culture and education, and what are the skills that they are bringing to the table when we are talking about payment and banking and fintech knowledge. And I think you've got a very unique job, which is sourcing and understanding all of these skilled professionals, let alone not having the standardized education around payments and banking. So I think we are going to have a very, very interesting conversation about how to understand who is fitting the company, how do you source these talents, and overall, how are you helping the industry? So thank you very much, Anastasia, to join us
today.
Thank
you very much for inviting us. Yeah, it's such a pleasure to be here and such a pleasure to actually talk with you and maybe challenge the industry a little bit and the ways we work in together. Because we see, I think this conversation started by us actually talking about education and how important it is for everyone. And let's be honest, there is no proper education which is helping everyone right now in the industry. So let's discuss and challenge it. And if you see that you don't agree with me on any of the points, let's talk openly about it and maybe find a common way that would be interesting to listen to for our audience.
Definitely. And I would like to ask everyone who is watching us or listening us to please send your questions, your comments, because this industry is a living, breathing, ever-changing kind of industry. So the only way that we can develop and educate is when we hear your voice as well. So please comment and share your story, share your questions, because that's the only way that we can actually reply and make a better environment for everyone. As we usually do, we collected some questions from the audience before we started this conversation. I added my little questions to the mix as well, just to give a good skeleton for the conversation. So we are going through all of these, but as I said, please share your comments and questions, because if there is a lot of interest on that, maybe that could be a good opportunity to either go back on the webinar or reply to everyone individually on their questions. I'm sure that Anastasia would be very happy to do that as well. So let's jump in, Anastasia. What do you do and how do you help the industry and how did you end up in this profession?
Yeah, let me start probably from the beginning. I think we've got lots of questions about education. So there is a university which is called Banking School of Economics in Latvia, right? BA School of Business and Finance, I think that's the name. So I started to study in that school, and you would expect that it's actually all about fintech and finance, right? Well, it wasn't. So you get the usual subjects like economics and math and business ethics, which is really cool baseline, I would say. But there is nothing about how to work in fintech in the future. It's all coming with experience. So after that, I kind of moved into fintech. And I've been building eCompay. I was the seventh person in eCompay, and I left it in 10 years. So I spent 10 years in fintech myself. I was a little bit not tired, but as a girl, sometimes you want to change everything. So that was the point when I really wanted to change all the industries and move into something completely new. I didn't manage to, as you see. I'm still in fintech, but I'm doing recruiting for fintech businesses. And I think I'm in this perfect gap when I do have experience working in a company. I was learning in the company, growing in the company, becoming manager of the company, and so on. And I saw how it evolved and changed in the different stages, like what we did when it was just 10 of us, how it changed when it was like 20 of us, 100 of us. And what challenges we've got, like when it was almost 500 or even like 1,000 of us. And it's a breathing organism, which, as you mentioned, it's evolving all the time. The industry is changing, the company is changing, and you have to adapt and learn together with it. So what we do now, we basically try to understand who are our clients, what are the stages of their business development, what kind of problems they have right now, and who are the people who will help them solve those problems. And we match those talent and companies basically together so that they could grow and build the businesses basically.
Yeah, and I think it's a very, very nice mission, but it's a hard work at all, because what I feel like that this industry is still based on what did you experience, not necessarily what did you learn in academia, who do you know, how well you know the industry to push the providers or the clients far. It is still very sales oriented, because at the end of the day, obviously, fintech companies trying to sell their products and services. So a lot of things are in the air, whisper next to the coffee machine. I've heard that in a conference. So a lot of guest-based kind of decision. It's a gut feeling. I know that other people are doing it this way, so let's try this way. So I think you've got a very, very hard job here to really understand that who knows what and in what extent people exaggerate or really have the skills, what's needed here, right? So let's jump into the first question, which is basically about this. Why is it so difficult to find skilled operational talent for payments and banking related roles? And as we said, yes, the gut feeling and the guesswork. But what do you think? What is the main problem of why I cannot just put an advert out there and hire someone who applies? Like why, companies
Well,
can't find
yeah, going back to the question, like if you put an advert, you can always hire somebody. The question is, who do you need and what do you expect of that person? And it's a challenge that many companies face. Like when you're growing, you want somebody with experience who will come and help you and maybe who's been going through the same problems and already did some mistakes and learned from those mistakes, right? And can tell you what to do and what not to do in order to achieve your results. And this doesn't usually come with educational background as we imagine it, not from university, just because the industry is changing so quickly. The new regulation is coming up every year. Like nobody expected MiCA to come into effect like a couple of years ago, right? Mm-hmm. And now everyone is preparing for it and not that many people understand how it's built. And sometimes we get the feeling that even the regulator is not really fully can explain you what to do and how to do. So you get your knowledge out of those conversations and out of talking openly and sometimes challenging the regulator and coming up with new ideas and new rules for the industry. And that's evolving every single year, if not every single month, I would say.
I think it's very much related to the technology, which is speeding up so quick that it takes everything with it, because fintech is basically regulation, technology. So if we see that new solutions are coming on the market every month, not even every year anymore, or even every day there is new innovation, then the regulation needs to catch up. That pushes through to speed up basically with the operation, with the implementation. And that's why we see that back at the day you started to learn accounting, that was debit, credit, whatever you learned 4 years ago, by the time you graduate, it's going to be the same knowledge. But today in fintech, if you start learning something today, in 4 years' time, by the time you graduate, it's going to be a whole different landscape. The year one already passed and it's in old information. So do you think that the gap in education and the professional readiness across the industry is basically speeding up, getting more and more innovative, whatever is yesterday, it's too old, and will we ever catch up with the education, or is always going to be fast, and then hope for the best that someone...
Most likely it depends on how quickly you develop those courses, right?
Yes, exactly.
Because it's a great question, really. And I don't think that we will have our education which will explain you 100% what you have to do. Because even when the regulation comes in place, you interpret it in different manner, depending on the industry where you work and the company where you are and the people with whom you work and how much they understand. So I would say that the gap will be there all the time. The question is, can you make sure that you minimize the gap? And you only make sure that you minimize the gap by staying current with all the trends, by speaking with the industry, by talking openly with the regulator if you don't understand something, and doing some kind of education on the background, which might not be like a huge courses which we are used to, but maybe micro learnings where you get 10 minutes a day or 10 minutes a week with current trends, current problems that companies are solving and how they're solving them. So the education has to evolve, and we have to basically make sure that it's not the boring thing which we did 10 years ago, but something which raises our curiosity and helps us to learn on the go all the time, constantly.
You think it is the responsibility of the company to do internal trainings and try to develop something internally, or can we still rely on external trainings, external regulators, external kind of qualification bodies to say that, this person learned at that university or institute, and therefore I'm trusting that external party that they did the good job for me to hire.
Yeah, I think it's a combination, to be honest, because you'll always have compliance related courses, which are a baseline. And those are huge, and you really have to invest your time and you have to test people properly. And I don't believe that organization, any company could actually do it professionally enough. Sometimes it doesn't give the knowledge that you can use right now, but it helps you develop your logic and the way you read documents and understand things which are going on in the world and so on. But it definitely has to come in combination with how do we onboard people, how do we teach people when they work with us. And I would love to say that, yes, every single company has to do it themselves. We tried to do it at eCompay during my time there, and it's extremely difficult because of so many things, like resources that you have to spend on it, both time resources and also money that you spend by getting the people who will teach other people, by checking out, by developing the systems that you use and so on. And sometimes also your knowledge is outdated. So the more professional is the partner, the more professional will become your employee in the future. And to be honest, I see it in my company that at the beginning, we've been just shadowing each other and getting new junior recruiters who would basically go with you and learn from you. And it's the most common thing that all the fintech companies do, right? So you employ somebody who is account manager and he will be stuck to an older or more experienced account manager who will tell him everything. The problem is that if there is any kind of misinterpretation or the pronunciation issue, like you spread the wrong in the company because this particular person will talk to that particular person in a particular way, which everyone else will be using in the future. And it might be not correct or not 100% correct. So the more professional is the partner, the more professional will be the people in the company in the future.
But I feel like sometimes, certain C-levels have different skill set to fulfill their job, which could be completely different from teaching the new generation. Because let's say we've got a CFO, perfect financial skills, amazing with the strategy, but it's not really a trainer type, maybe not even a people person, that it could be hindering the training of the new generation simply because CFO is not a trainer. Maybe their delivery is not sufficient, or maybe they have a lot of knowledge, but it's very hard to pass on. Or at the same time, for example, when I see a lot of sales training with a COO, a salesperson, very, very, friendly, amazing in delivery, but they are salespeople, so they might not have the relevant knowledge, as you said, on compliance, passing on the wrong information, which spirals down and becomes the norm, which is on wrong basis. So when hiring for roles, and I think this is the next question as well, why hiring for roles, what kind of skills or knowledge do you most often find missing? Because these roles are so vague and the lines are blurry. You're no longer just a CFO or just a salesperson or just a compliance. You need to see the big picture. What do you think? What are the skills or knowledge that we are still missing in this industry?
I think the most common one is seeing the whole picture. So as you mentioned, if you're a CFO, maybe you know everything around finance, but then you don't really understand how the partnerships work and why sometimes you're making that much money on partnerships and sometimes you're paying that much to your partners. And there is not enough people, to be honest, who understand the whole business. Usually those people are the founders of companies or the C-level, which maybe doesn't really have time to actually explain it to the rest of the company because they're so busy that it's difficult for them to eat. But I think that's the most common question that we ask, and we try to kind of grasp it. Like, how much do you understand and how easy is it for you to put the puzzle together? Because if you're really narrow in what you do, it's going to be difficult for you to work together with other departments to understand how to help the business grow together with other departments and so on. The most common is the compliance, of course, because compliance could be the bottleneck of the business or could be business oriented where it understands how to work with onboarding team, for example, to get those clients to ask for those documents in a proper way and so on. So the more you get people who understands the wider picture of the business, the easier it's going to be for the business to grow.
Back at the day, I remember we learned in the university, it was 20 years ago, that the more you automate a business and the smaller chunks you give to people, for example, in the factory line, or when everything is standardized, like the big four, these are the procedures, follow the procedures, and then you can't go wrong, then that's the key to scalability, because you can't just expect people to have the same common sense and react in the same situation in the same way. So the more you standardize things and the narrower their responsibility is, the better for the company in the long term. But what I see now with all these changes is that the world is going towards people who are more of a generalist. So you might not have a deep understanding in one subject, doing the same thing over and over again. But as you said, I understand a bit of compliance. I'm updating myself on the technology. I understand risk, and therefore I can see the big picture and then make relevant decisions. Is it something that you see as well, that nowadays it's better to be a generalist with having understanding of multiple subjects, or it's still good to be an absolute expert in one field and one field only, and then it's the management's job to put the puzzle pieces together?
It totally depends on the size of the businesses. So I would say that when it's a 10 to 20% business, most likely you're looking for generalists, somebody who will come, who will grasp their part, but also understand how to develop it further, what kind of people to get, maybe take a little bit of sales and a little bit of marketing and mix everything and perform somehow to a level that the business becomes profitable, right? And then when you're scaling the business, you need more experts who will actually understand exactly what to do and be very niche in what they're doing. And when you grow the business even further, you need people who can actually build procedures, who can develop those automations, who can make sure that the KPIs are reached and everyone understands what are the KPIs and why those KPIs have to be reached and so on. So it totally depends on the size of the business. And it's an interesting topic to actually connect it to the personality of the person, because sometimes you get people who are extremely good as generalists. But if you put them into a system, they will get bored or they will not perform. And sometimes you have people who evolve. It's just a question of noticing those small tweaks and inside the company, maybe also doing some kind of check up on the people and how they feel, what are their levels of motivations and what makes them tick. And it could be changing during those years when the person is working with that particular company or in that segment, basically, or industry.
I think it's good that you mentioned, because the next question is really about this. What helps you to identify the right people in the fintech, the right personality to the right job, and make sure that it is going to be an amazing fit? Hello everyone, my name is Viktoria Soltesz and I'm the founder of the Soltesz Institute. Startups fail. And if they fail, most probably they are failing because they don't have the thought out and proper channels for payments and banking.
Hello everyone, my name is David Vartimashvili. Compliance is no longer a side function. It's a core operational requirement.
Hey, welcome everybody. I'm Marcia Klingon-Smith. Instant Payments is transforming the way money moves all across the globe, across all the different industries.
What helps you to identify the right people in the fintech, the right personality to the right job, and make sure that it is going to be an amazing fit?
Yeah. This is an extremely difficult question. It might be simple, but it is really difficult. It basically comes back to understanding the company for which we are hiring. So what is the problems that you're facing right now, and what kind of people do you need for this problem to be fixed? And maybe what kind of problems you'll face in the future, and what kind of people you'll need in the future as well. And then you have to mix it up, because what we get sometimes is a scale up will come to us and will say that we have this particular problem and we need a person who will solve this problem. But if you get them this, for example, operational manager who will solve this problem, in 3 months, they will have completely different problems. They will have problems with revenue operations or with automation or with something else. And you have to make sure that you think about those next steps in the future. And basically what we try to do is understand exactly how the business is evolving. What are their plans? Who do they need right now and in the future? And try to find those specific skills in person to match that job. It sounds difficult and it's difficult to explain, but it's a lot about understanding the business. But that's hard skills. We also look for people with curiosity and I would say energy, because if you're not curious and you don't have the energy to perform, you will never actually do it. So that's probably the key point in terms of soft skills, which we are looking for in candidates.
That's so true. But it's very hard to pinpoint that, right? Because even today, when people apply for new jobs, I think 99.9% of the people are exaggerating. Oh, yes, of course I did that, or I was responsible for that, just to look better and more desirable.
I don't think so. Guys do it more frequently than girls do. Definitely. I can, I recently wrote an article specifically about it just because so often I see girls who actually speak in perfect English, and they, by the end of the interview, they would say, well, my English is not perfect enough. Minor things where girls are not really 100% confident in what they do. But I don't think that many people actually lie as we used to in our interviews. Maybe because it's so easy to crack them right now. Mm-hmm. So just by asking a couple of questions about case studies, results, specific topics, you can see that they lose track of what they've been telling you. And that's basically your answer in terms of their performance and education and what they're capable of.
Right. And all of these Instagram stories that we see that's on an interview, you just put the AI there and the AI is actually replying and you read it off. Is it true? Or
we've got a couple of people like that, really. You can see it from minute one. If I would be reading right now, you would definitely notice it. You would see that I'm kind of I'm pausing, I'm making mistakes, because whenever you read, you will see that you are not really reading the correct words and so on. Mm-hmm. So, yes, people try to use technologies. The technology is not helping them yet. We'll see how it will evolve in the future. Maybe in the future, you'll tell me the questions. I'll make sure that somebody makes a mask of my face and then reads out everything in a perfect way. But for now, it's definitely not true. And I think what's important to understand, it's also we don't perfect. If we talk in a perfect way without making any mistake, without pauses, you will not really manage to connect to me. And the interview and the hiring process is a lot about, do you like myself as I am? And how do I express myself and so on. So it's a lot about your personality, and the personality is only possible when you actually speak directly, mentioning what you know and what you don't know, and how you would actually conquer those things that you don't know right now, but would like to do in the future.
Actually, I was talking to someone the other day, and the person is also a business owner. And we, as we do, we are just complaining that it's very hard to find talent, and where are all these people with a good work ethic and whatnot. And he told me one interesting thing, and I'm very curious about your opinion. He said that today the culture is that if you're confident in what you do, then everything is supporting you to start your own thing, be either a freelancer or start your own company. So if you're a good marketeer, you're no longer applying for marketing positions because you say, watch me, I can do it on my own. And then you set up a marketing company, for example, or a project management company. So do you also see these trends that good employees are hard to find because now they are companies, and only employees who are not confident enough to start their own thing are still applying for positions? What do you think?
I would not agree. I think it takes a lot of courage to start something like the institute or a recruiting firm. But like you just mentioned yourself that you're complaining, right? So it's not that easy. It probably comes with its own challenges. And it's a challenge to build it. It's a challenge to sustain it. It's a challenge that you have to think about all those people who you employed, that you couldn't really go on a proper holiday and you have to work evenings and weekends and so on. It's sometimes easy to think that, yes, I have the knowledge to start something, but it's so difficult to actually pursue it in a longer time, not just for a month or two, right? So I think it's like entrepreneurship, it's some kind of adrenaline, how to say, run, right? Which you do. But if you're a really great employee who enjoys how the company is growing and what you're doing in life, it's totally fine to stick to the company or stick to the industry and evolve in it. And we see so many great talent who've been in smaller companies and then they decided to go for a little bit bigger companies, maybe in Latvia, but then they go to London or they go to Amsterdam and they develop a completely different career on a different scale and level. And they're extremely happy. And they don't work after 5 o'clock in the evening and they never come to a holiday with their laptop, you know? So I wouldn't say that there is a trend. Yes, maybe growing up, you see that you have the power to do it yourself, but not everyone will actually pursue that career. It's difficult.
That's so true. And I just heard it in one conference that, yes, I want to start my own company because then I will have time for my kids. And I was like, no, you're completely on the wrong track if you think that. All right, let's go back to the companies. The next question is really about, I think, training. What can companies do better to train candidates for these new specialized roles? How can you be always up to date with the latest? How do you know that you are training them on the right thing? And how do you know that the person who is training them also is the right person? What do you see? How these internal trainings are going? Are they successful? What would you recommend companies?
I think that's a perfect question for you. Actually, I'll tell you a little bit about my experience, but I would love to hear what you think about it as well. Because from my experience, we have one client who is a crypto processing company, and they're quite huge. And they developed a training for everyone, not just for internal employees, but for anyone who comes basically to their webpage. And it talks about everything connected to cryptocurrency, blockchain, how to pay with crypto, why crypto is needed, and so on. It's a lovely baseline. Like whenever you're employing somebody, if you can give them this baseline to understand the business which they're entering, that's amazing. Then in the future, you have to actually understand what are the next skills that the person will be needing in his job and how to develop those trainings. And unfortunately, not that many companies have the resources to do it properly internally because you need like a whole educational team to do it. We used to do something like I mentioned, we struggle to train those employees who joined our company. And I was so surprised that they don't know the basics. Like, somebody would come to our company and I would start explaining them about the job and how difficult this position is and how to find those people and how to source and how to interview them and so on. But what they didn't really understand is who is a merchant, what is high risk, what's the difference between PSP and acquirer, and so on, and what are the licenses. And like I was thinking, well, Google it. Unfortunately, Googling is not enough. You have to explain in simple words, and you have to explain 100 times before the person will actually not just understand it, but understand how to use it professionally. And it takes huge amount of time to do it. And I would love for somebody else to do it instead of me, just because I know that I could also be incorrect. And what ChatGPT is telling me might also be not 100% true, or might be changed in the future. And I will still be stuck to that information, because how often do you update those training materials in a company? Once a year, maybe, like if you're really lucky, maybe once in a couple of years. And then, by the time you actually check those materials, you understand that like 30% or 50% is already incorrect, which is not really good. So what's your take on it?
I think the problem is that there is a lot of noise which are coming from sales efforts, and this is being fed to AI. This is what Google brings up. So there are a lot of information of payment orchestration is the best, pick mine. Right? So it doesn't actually explain what is payment orchestration and how you can make a differentiation between this payment orchestrator or that, because the whole article is written in order to buy mine. Set up buy mine tool. So what I see here is that there is no independent and authentic answer. So when you're Googling whatever payment solution, or what is an acquirer, what is an issuer, you've got 28,000 finds, but this is all to support some kind of sales effort. So it's very hard to see through the noise here. And this is what I'm also saying to my clients, that when I talk about even payment gateway, it could mean completely different things to you than it's for me, because there is no standard. There are no commonly agreed benchmarks or best practices. Everybody is learning somewhere, somehow, through experience. But as you said, maybe the information was just wrong from the get-go. So that's the whole point of starting the Institute and doing all these webinars, to clear the air and help companies to understand that this is a very, very risky business, not to cap the full picture or rely on biased information. So I think it's super hard to not just only train the candidates, but understand you as a business owner or you as a manager to really see that what is important to teach and what is true and what is just there to get you in. So that's what I see. And unfortunately, our industry is not really helping when it comes to introducers, right? A lot of people are posing as payment experts or payment strategists, so consultants, but these people are not consultants; these are resellers. So that's also adding a lot of difficulty to this.
Totally. You just reminded me about, when I started, we used to have a guy who was a researcher, and he now is an amazing head of sales, which I very much aspire, basically. When he started in the industry, he was looking at all the YouTube videos, explaining how does transaction go, who is acquirer, who is issuer, and so on. And by the time he joined the company, I think I used to work in the company for like a year, maybe a year and a half. And he was the one who was telling me everything. I was basically learning so much from him, and just by discussing different subjects with him all the time. And the whole company was learning out of him. When you have people like that who invest their time into studying and explaining, that's extremely amazing. But I believe he was spending up to 3-4 hours every single day, just like coming home and going through that pile of documents to understand it better. And not everyone can invest that kind of time. And if you imagine that that's actually an expensive expert who you're getting to your company, you don't really want him to spend that kind of time to understand your business in general. You want him to spend the time working and making sure that the business becomes profitable or earns a lot more money, right?
That's so true. And I think the person also feels a bit let down because I am training everyone, but I'm only being paid for my sales efforts. So there is a paradox situation when I'm supposed to do something else, which pays the bills, which motivates me. Yet I feel like my obligation because I know I need to train the team. So I think here the management's responsibility comes in the picture to understand that, hey, we need to motivate employees to learn on their own, give them KPIs on understanding other than just sales targets, because that leads to better results in the long term, not just on the short term. Go and sell. What was selling? Doesn't matter. Just go and sell. So that's also, I think it's a big thing for management to realize these aspects. Let's see the next question, because I think it's a very interesting one. We all know that continuous training makes measurable business impact, of course, but what is the most interesting case you have seen? What's the most interesting topic?
To be honest, I want to be able to tell you the cases. I've mentioned one when the company actually did external training, and that's a cool one. I think what we do is quite interesting. We do have Friday meetings, which are an hour and a half long. And during those Friday meetings, every single person would once a month or once in a quarter basically come up with the topics they want to explain. And it could be anything connected to what we do, like how we do interviews or how we look for people and so on, to external things like who is acquirer, what kind of acquirers are having what kind of cultures, how do we discuss those acquirers, who are the people who are happy, how do we compare those people, and so on. So the more you basically make sure that your people inside your company are exchanging knowledge openly and supporting each other, the better. But I'm thinking that you would probably have many more cases because you're developing those programs, right? So if you can share some of your cases, that would be amazing.
Well, I see a lot that there are companies who hire a whole sales floor. They tell them the bare minimum, and then they let them to sell. And if they can't perform, obviously they get fired, and then a new blood comes in. So I see a lot of times when there is a misunderstanding, there is a completely wrong misinterpretation of something, and that gets into the culture of tell this to the client. And I have seen, unfortunately, quite many toxic environments as well, because there are no standards and there are no repercussions of saying something wrong. Tell them that, yes, we have, and then we figure it out. Or tell them, of course, you can onboard them, and then compliance filters it out. And then if they don't do it, you can blame someone else. It's not your fault. Your fault is to get the leads in, promise everything, and then we'll see. Yeah. But they don't really understand how damaging could it be for the big picture, because you are then turning into a fintech company who's over promising and under delivering. So those are the most interesting cases that I see. But I see a lot of what you mentioned, that there is a self-proclaimed expert who is not being remunerated for their experience, but they are doing it on a charity basis for helping the company, but the management doesn't really recognize their efforts. But I've seen also that a lot of recruitment companies also want to just tick the box. Go, you figure it out. There will be full training given. Don't worry if you don't know it. No one knows it. Just start. I got my commission. And then you're just figuring it out there. So somehow maybe we are still motivating the wrong behavior. So we should focus more on rewarding the right actions. And I think that's the biggest lesson that we need to learn of that. But how do you, for example, how you measure knowledge without certification? How do you pass by the lack of standardized education in fintech? How do you know that if you're hiring that person, they will know what is step one, what is Swift, and what is open banking, and what is pooled account? How do you measure knowledge without having any kind of certification?
We ask a lot of questions. So whenever we have a new role, especially if it's an expert role, we would understand exactly what the person will be doing. And we come up with lots of questions, like direct questions when you have to explain something, but also case study questions. And then you look for the logic. You kind of try to understand how the person is thinking. What kind of example does he make? What are the results that he used to achieve? Who are the people with whom he worked? Could you check his references with those people and so on? So the more you ask, the more you understand. And yes, you can always find those expert people and they will be amazing. And sometimes businesses really need those experts. But what we haven't discussed with you is if you're a smaller business and you're trying to scale up, not always you need only experts. Sometimes you want to have less experienced people who will grow with you, who will be extremely loyal to you because you are the one who will teach them, who will not cost you that much money, and who will be almost like plastic, like you can build anything you want from them. So you get somebody who has the energy to study, to learn, to evolve together with the business and to become something better in the future. That's extremely amazing, but you can only do it by investing in the education and in studying and evolving with those person.
I think it's also coming back to the management responsibility to recognize that do we need an expert on top salary 8 hours a day? Or do we need an expert 2 hours a week and then execution on a junior level or a mid-senior level, which is going to be more cost effective, but the work is just as much getting done, taking advantage of the expert's knowledge. So I see a lot of these hybrid models, such as the fractional CMO, the fractional CPA or Chief Payment Officer, that you don't hire someone for hundreds of thousands of euros for a year. You get the expert paid per hour, and then the execution is done internally. Do you see also this kind of fractional model?
We don't. It might be because of the segment that we are in. Most of our clients are coming from high risk. And that's a specific, I would say, market. And when you're working for high risk, you don't want anyone to be fractional. You want to keep those people to yourself, and you don't want to share your secrets to anyone else, basically. So we see a lot that our clients are looking for top experts in the market, the ones who will know much more than anyone else. And then you develop the team by combining the experts with basically hands who will do some of the work which is not really managed by the expert. So it's a mixture between the expertise and the younger professionals who will learn from that expert.
There is a very popular setup for internship programs or junior programs when the company is paying for the education of the employee. Then the employee signs a contract that I am declaring that I'm working for this company for 3, 4, whatever year. Unless if I quit, I have to pay back the tuition fee. So in this way, they get the best of both worlds because the company gets educated, but junior staff, and they lock them down for years. And it's good for the person as well to take advantage of these paid tuition plus the internship plus the work experience, so they have a better chance in life moving forward. Do you see this program happening? Do you see that the companies are paying for degrees, certifications in return of locking down the employee for years?
Again, for compliance roles, definitely, just because you in order to have that experience in compliance roles, you have to invest in the education of those people. I don't think that the experts are staying for years with the company, unfortunately, because sometimes when you learn, you become more expensive and then somebody else might just steal you. Another cool thing that we saw was introduction to fintech. I think a couple of Baltic companies actually did it really nicely when they've been looking for account managers and salespeople and so on. And they took them not from the industry, but from anywhere else except of fintech. And it was a summer program where those people basically went into a fintech company and they studied each of the small bits and pieces like finance, marketing, operations, account management, sales, and so on. And then by the end of the summer, you basically understood who is the correct person for you to keep for the business and what is the role that the person liked more and where he performed better. That was extremely amazing. And we still see, I think the program was run couple of years ago, and I still see people who actually joined that company during that time and are still with the company because they are giving people chance. Like it's so difficult to get into fintech right now that whenever you're giving people chance, they stay so loyal to you that it definitely pays off.
And it's a huge investment as well, I think, because
It is.
smaller companies cannot pull that off. What do you think? Is it a responsibility of the regulator or of the market to actually train these new talents? Because at the end of the day, they also benefit from their knowledge. And I'm talking about maybe startup hubs, a chamber of commerces, regulators should arrange these kind of setups. What do you think?
It would be extremely amazing. It's not happening right now, but it would be such a great idea, to be honest. Like, if the regulator would actually make sure that there are roundtables every month when things are discussed and new ideas are kind of gathered and implemented in the future and so on, that would be totally amazing. Unfortunately, it's not happening. And unfortunately, what we see right now is basically people sharing that knowledge. So you get somebody who has just done an audit and they're sharing how they went through the audit, what are the mistakes that they made, what is mistake. Like, you basically learn on mistakes, right? Or you succeeded in some part, you got that license in that specific country, and then you become the license expert and you charge people money for explaining how to fill those documents to achieve that license and so on. Still, whenever you are hunting talent, you are basically paying for that experience of achieving something or making those mistakes and never again actually following the same path.
The next question is actually, how do you find the balance between day work and preparing for the future when it comes to education? What do you think? What is the right balance of doing your day-to-day work, but allocating some time to be up to date with the latest, read the articles, talk to your peers, go to conferences, for example? Do you think that there is a measurable balance, or go when you can, or do it on your free time? Because it's not the company's responsibility to allocate time for this.
Again, like 10 years ago, I used to have a coworker who would put in his calendar every Thursday that he's reading newspapers. And I would think, well, why do you need it? And now I realize that, well, he's so much smarter than I am just because he was putting that time in his calendar every single week. Right. So the more you invest in education, the better for you in the future. What I do, from my example, I try to go to all the industry events. At least every quarter, I'm going to a big conference. And my goal for the conference is not just to meet my clients, but basically to understand what's going on in the market. How are the clients growing? What are the challenges that they're kind of seeing in the market? Who is the regulator? What is the regulator talking about on the stage and maybe out of the stage? Who are the people thinking about change? Why are they thinking about change? Like, just asking so many questions to understand the market much better. But again, if I would do just this, I would not really know enough. In our case, we're so well positioned. We can talk with anyone every single day. Basically, whenever you don't understand something, I would tell to my recruiters, just talk to 10 people and you'll basically understand the role and you'll understand the situation in the market and so on. Unfortunately, not every business can do it. And then you have to come up with ways. How do you make sure that all your people are getting the education they're needing?
If there was a certificate that you could create that saves the industry and educate everyone, what would you do? And I think this is the last question, but it really fits the flow of the conversation, that how can certifications help raise standards and provide the peace of mind for the company that the quality will be met? And what would be that certificate and what would be that knowledge, in your opinion, based on your experience, that we should create as bare minimum standard?
I would start from the basics. I would, if you can develop it, I would be so happy. But really, like, start from the basics, explaining what is fintech, what is a transaction, how is transaction developed, what is the flow of the transaction, who is responsible for which part. You have banks, you have merchants, you have acquiring centers, processing centers, gateways, and so on. Like, so many names that, when you put them all together, it's so difficult to understand without the proper education. And then for each single company, you basically develop a flow of how the companies are structured, because we work with acquirers, we work with gateways, we work with PSPs. The company structure is completely different. The way people operate is completely different. So if for each of those companies, I would say that there is a training specifically for PSPs working with specifically that industry, be it high risk or low risk or that region, for example. And they would understand how the companies are structured, who would be responsible for what are the duties and goals and how to make money on it. That would be extremely amazing. But even the basics, just like if you would ask me one wish, I would say develop a training which would outline the basics so that we can build on it.
And just this training exists, because that's exactly what we are developing here at the Soltesz Institute. And I'm very happy that we are talking about these things, because together we can even develop this further based on your industry experience, based on the everyday problems that we see, mixed together with professional knowledge. Then we can actually create the standards for that. And at the end, that's how we create an ethical and transparent industry for everyone when everybody is trained enough. What do you think, what will be the future, and how do you see your role in the age of AI? What do you think that how this whole education and the recruitment process is going to change with automation?
We've been discussing it just recently with my friends. I don't think that it will change a lot. We just got the first cases when people are coming to get interviewed by AI, and it's a horrible experience because, you expect that somebody will be listening to you, right? And there is blank box, and then you get curious about how to crack that blank box and what kind of questions to ask and what kind of how to develop your reply so that the box will understand or place you correctly. So I don't think that for the next couple of years, we'll see a lot of AI interviews. I still value relationships, and I think that so many good placements are made just by knowing correct people and understanding when they're ready to move or what they're looking for in the future and placing them. So in my opinion, AI will not really change a lot. Right now, maybe in a couple of years, it's going to be completely different. But in terms of education, I would love to say that we know so much more with ChatGPT and ability to ask questions and get much better results than just by Googling, I would say. And the more companies will start using common databases, knowledge sharing databases, and so on, the easier it's going to be for them to educate their people in the future or develop some common knowledge base which could be answering all those questions of people. Because we are still stuck with people who are afraid to ask questions. And if they would be able to do it without actually asking the question, but typing it, that would make the whole lot difference.
That's so true. Anastasia, do you want to mention something else? Is there something that we haven't talked about that we should have before we wrap up?
I think we covered everything. Just to summarize, I would say that companies will always be looking for experts, and we are happy to help them, and we do it every single day, and we know everyone in the market and so on. But whenever you're growing, you will still need younger people, more ambitious people, people with energy, and so on. And then you have to invest in education, and making sure that you have this education in place is something that could completely change the company and the results that you will achieve in the future.
And watch this space, because we recently teamed up with Anastasia about the education part, about hiring. And together we are developing a method in fintech, how to find a more trained and more educated, skilled personnel, where she's handling, obviously her company is handling the recruitment, and we are taking care of the education. So watch this space, because there are a lot of new interesting elements are about to be revealed, and there are a lot of new interesting content which yet to come. But thank you so much, Anastasia, for being here with us today. It was an absolute pleasure. As I mentioned earlier, but I can't stress enough, please share your comments, your your case studies, your questions, your ideas with us, because that's the only way that we can create an ethical and transparent industry. I'm sure that Anastasia would be very happy to reply to all of your questions. So thank you very much for being here, and
thanks a lot for inviting us. It was such a pleasure to talk to you, as always. Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Hey, welcome everybody. I'm Marcia Klinget-Smith. Instant payments is transforming the way money moves all across the globe, across all the different industries. A recent study showed that 42% of instant payment transactions actually happen on the evenings and weekends. About $200 billion is currently locked up in the European financial system today. And instant payments really can help unlock this liquidity. The future of finance is instant, and those who adapt will thrive.